All right, give it a couple seconds and then it'll. Oh, YouTube's live. Give Facebook a couple. Facebook's initializing. All right, we're officially live on YouTube and Facebook.
Tag and post. All right, team.
Here we go. And now we're initializing Periscope.
Let them know that we're live in the forums and all that stuff.
Yeah, let's share it over. All right, Periscope's activated.
People use Periscope. It's like it's getting traction now that Facebook Live and everything is in full swing, and Snapchat and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I think it's starting to try to limp its way along. I think Facebook crushed it for a little bit, so they're trying to figure out ways to actually make it work.
Yeah, it was popular for a while, but I mean, I was reading one of the investor reports, and Twitter was complaining about allowing you to edit tweets after they've gone live, and Facebook's over there on the other side trying to figure out how to put sensors on your skin so you can hear sounds. It's like
it's true. It's crazy.
It's like their focus is kind of different. Or one company is focusing on how to grow and push the envelope, and the other one's like, well, what we have works. Let's just stick with it.
They're like, let's just keep it this way.
It's probably a good metaphor for business, and how that would be analogous to the gym side, but stagnation is usually a bad sign.
Yeah, I think it's that idea of you always want to be trying to put yourself out of business or trying to figure out how you can move past what you were doing.
Yeah. Figure out areas that aren't growing and complaints, and either chop them off. Often simplifying things is one of the best ways to grow. Or
yeah,
you just want to always add stuff. It's not always the best solution. Sometimes taking away features can actually increase some of those metrics.
That's true. Sometimes things just get so convoluted over time and complicated. You have to take a step back and just simplify the entire thing, and then all of a sudden everything works better, smoother, and there's no issues or problems.
It's going to be weird. I'm going to watch myself.
I know, staring at yourself on the screen.
I just want to see the questions. So, any questions coming through yet? See anything?
Not yet. We'll just talk until they start sending them through. It usually takes a minute to build an audience. We just shared it to the forum, so we got one viewer now, so that's exciting.
Yes. Hope it's not me viewing my own feed.
You're viewing your own thing, or maybe it's me. So what should we talk about? We got one viewer now, so that's exciting.
I don't see the question. Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we're more involved. I'm more involved in the back end of things now. Not really a forward-facing voice the way I used to be back in the implementation days, but things have moved far beyond what I ever consulted people on. So the team is much smarter now on the front end, which is great for you guys who are just coming in or are working hardcore with your implementation manager. We were just talking today. Megan was talking about the summit, and I was kind of reminiscing on some things back in the early days when the first, I guess you would call it the first summit. Back in the day, it was called the Executive Diploma Program, which is kind of a misnomer because it's not like you got anything at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't an executive, and you didn't get a diploma, so I'm not really sure why that was the title. But I remember meeting Track back then, and that's where I first ran into Dave Picardi and Mike Price and all those kind of older guys. It was really interesting that was at the time, even for us to even get there was a stretch to afford it. And Patty just basically called up and said, you should come out. what was really cool was like the amount of energy that you took away from those events and the amount of information that you got from those events was definitely worth it. I mean, pound for pound, probably the most important event that I went to all year. And that was way back in the day when we didn't really know much about what we were doing, right?
Yeah.
It's really the summit, I guess, you're trying to put old guys who have been in it a long time and have made most of the mistakes that you can make together with, young blood and new energy and people who haven't been jaded by the industry yet and have lots of creative ideas. And that's really where best practices get, born from, is kind of merging those two ends of the spectrum. And somewhere along the line, you figure out, these guys have great ideas, and the old guys say, well, we tried that. Here were the results, but this is a new twist, so let's try that, and kind of keep pushing the envelope and pushing this whole industry forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I found like every year I go to the summit, all the speakers are great and everything's exciting, but then like the real power is when you just sit down and talk with people who are doing things really well. So everybody has their little round tables. You go to breakfast or you hang out together during the breaks and all that, and you ask questions, ask what they're doing, ask how they're doing it, ask why they're doing it, and then all of a sudden you come out with new ideas and strategies you never would have thought about otherwise. And I think that power of the collaboration there is huge, because you can sit there and think about stuff by yourself or with your team, but if you don't have an outside viewpoint or someone who's doing things a different way, it's hard to grow.
I mean, sometimes it's just a little. Someone makes a comment, they might not even mean to do it, but it's going to connect ideas in your head that might not have shook hands by themselves, and
yeah,
insights that you're going to glean from all these people who are trying all kinds of different things, yet all kind of doing it with the same goal and the same intentions.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It's like you hear like this one little nugget of gold from someone, and it fires you up, lights that light bulb, sets you up, and then you say, that was that one thing I needed to do that I never actually did. And then it gives you that you go home and you try it, you implement it. If you can't figure it out, you call the person because you met them at the summit, you got their contact info, and then they walk you through it, and then all of a sudden you have this finely tuned running machine, which is pretty neat. We've done that with like our youth weightlifting program a bunch of times. Talk with people about it, how to build it, and then they'll call the gym, we'll walk them through it, and it's that power of the collaboration in the group.
So, I mean, you just got back from, where were you, USA Weightlifting?
Yeah, I've been in Colorado Springs up at the Olympic Training Center. I left on Tuesday. We had a big collaboration session on Wednesday, and then I came back Thursday. And we're building out a new program that they're going to announce next week. But I think it's going to be really cool. It's going to help grow the sport to a point to where it needs to be. And so it doesn't have to entirely depend on things like CrossFit for growth. It can have its own growth programs and its own programs to develop talent and do a lot of the things that we see other countries doing that we need to do.
Yeah. So how did you first get involved with USA Weightlifting? I mean, it's probably a good story for some of these up and coming gyms to hear, to understand and learn how to get involved with the greater community, which is going to open up doors, I'm sure.
Yeah. So what I found was when I started getting involved in all this stuff, you have to be willing to volunteer, and you have to be willing to help, and you have to do things with no expectation of a return. I call this like the long-term plan. You have to be able to say like, I'm doing this today because maybe in like 5 years it'll come back and I'll be able to make something out of this, or I'll be someone who everybody kind of wants to work with. And that's how we did it. So we had our club, Stone Age Field Barbell Club, that we opened in 2013, and Phil Andrews, who's the CEO now, was just coming on board with USA Weightlifting that year, and they were coming to Reno to do the Junior Pan American Championships. And so we get this email from Phil that says, "Hey, we need some help putting this thing together. Would any clubs or anybody be interested in helping us out?" And so we responded to the email. I got on the phone with Phil. We ended up bringing all the volunteers and helping basically manage and run the entire event, which was pretty big for us. Basically got us our foot in the door in the event management business, I would say. Not even the business, but just being good at managing events. And after that, then after Pan American Championships, then all of a sudden we had the 2015 American Open the next year, which if you weren't there, it was the largest weightlifting event in the world ever. So it was bigger than like the Mexican Nationals. It was huge. It's bigger than like the Olympics. We had close to 1,000 registered lifters. And so they wanted to do that in Reno, and they tasked us with putting it together. And I still remember the date of the close of registration, Phil Andrews sending me a message that said 955 lifters. And then he put 955. And I was just like, mother of God, how are we going to do this?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Have you seen crossover from having to organize large scale events like that to, running like a small time community thing in your gym? I think there's analogous skills there.
Oh yeah. I think like the way you run that, you can look at that, like running a huge event like that is the same as running a workshop, just a smaller scale. And so the biggest thing is you organize things in kind of in different tiers and different strategies, and you organize like a timeline. So our first strategy and timeline is to establish some sort of Facebook group or Facebook event for the event. And then for the group, we want to filter volunteers into the group. So then we put volunteers into the specific group, and that allows us to gather everybody in one specific spot. And then the other thing is just keeping in constant communication with the people who might be interested in attending. And so it's like at least once a week, you're sending emails, you're sending messages, you're posting up about it, reminding people. And that way it's always in their ear, and they're always aware of it, and they start getting excited and pumped about it as it comes through. And the larger scale the event, the more people you have to reach. But if you're in a workshop in like a local community, it's as simple as set up your Facebook event, go to 55 local businesses in town, drop off all your flyers, and then run a Facebook ad for a whole month about it.
Okay, so I just saw a question pop up here from Seneca Sealy, asking, we're looking to start a kids sports and performance class. How would you guys approach this to get it ramped up and start?
Yeah,
right.
That's a good question.
Yeah, good timing. So
for sure.
You're the marketing guru. So in terms of getting the class, kind of getting the hype around the class before it's even launched, what are some strategies that Seneca could look to implement?
Yeah, I think there's a couple strategies you can do to set this up. And the biggest thing to do is call it some sort of sports performance. So ours is called Stone Age Fuel Youth Weightlifting Sports Performance. And so it identifies as like a sports enhancing program, but it can also be turn into a sport for the kid. But I think the biggest ways to get it developed and started is you have to start networking with people who can benefit from what the program is going to do. So what I would do if you're going to start that program is, number one, establish how you're going to do it and what you're going to do and have a plan of action. So for us, it's the kids come in, they do a consultation that we do for free. We sit with the kids and we talk about their goals. We do a self-assessment with the child, and their parent sits with them too. So they have the parent as kind of a backup if they can't figure out what they want to say. And then we do a little bit of a movement assessment, and we develop an understanding from that. After the kids are done with the consultation phase, we move into our youth weightlifting fundamentals program. So it's anywhere, usually with the kids, it's a little bit less than like a full-blown fundamentals would be. So we're putting them through like 7 sessions. We have to teach them the base. We have 1 session devoted to each lift. We have a session devoted to accessory stuff, a session devoted to health and nutrition, a lot of that. And the newest one we've set up is the healthy eating session. And so we have the parents sit in there with them and they talk about it. And so that way you can kind of get the whole family on board and excited about it. But I think once you have that set up and established, and once they finish fundamentals, we give them the option to keep doing that until they're comfortable for the club training, or they move right into the club training. And so what I would do to set that up is I would pinpoint cheerleading gyms, gymnastics gyms, football program. I would pinpoint all of the local sports clubs, and I would get in touch with their coaches and the parents and say, hey, we've got the sports performance program. We've been doing this for a while now, and we've noticed that cheerleaders don't get hurt as often. Gymnasts are more powerful. People playing baseball can light that ball up when they hit it. Football players, it's impossible to tackle them. So we're finding that this program is hugely beneficial in terms of like hip explosiveness for all of these other sports. And if you can go in there and stay in contact with all these facilities, then they're going to start sending their kids to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big trend right now with a lot of the research coming out that, the kids that are diversified in their athletic abilities tend to be better athletes long term. I mean, there's a lot of high school, especially in like NCAA coaches now, who won't even accept kids who aren't a multi-sport athlete. just because they know that they're too boxed in into kind of one framework, and the body likes to move in many different ways. I think you kind of mentioned already, like getting the parents to sit with the kids is probably a huge factor, especially in terms of success of the program, right? I mean, if you've done any of the Greg Mack sales stuff, you know that having the buyer involved in the sales communication process is critical. I mean, it's not the kids most likely that are going to be paying the bill here. So to really express to the parents why their kid should be in such a program is going to be very important, and making sure that they're there when that presentation is happening.
Yeah, that's huge.
When we ran our kids programs, we found that the kids can't really communicate. They just have fun, right? They can't really communicate what's happening, why they're getting better at sports and things like that. But you can communicate that to their parents and make them understand why it's so important to put a kid in a program like this. A lot of the fears that I remember addressing were around, parents being scared of lifting heavy weights and things like that. And there's a ton of research out there now about, like weightlifting is one of the least injurious sports that you can possibly partake in. And that the fear around it is kind of irrational. Where we are, we're a big hockey town. Parents had no problem throwing their 8-year-old into full contact hockey.
Yeah.
Some of them multiple concussions in a year, but wouldn't let their kid lift. So there's a whole bunch of material that you can use to really educate the parents and build a program around how this kind of cross training is going to prevent injuries down the line and turn their kid into a much better athlete long term.
Yeah, that's huge. I think you touched on a good point too with the parents is if you get the kid doing it and the kid loves it and the kid's excited, but the parent's not bought in, the parent's not going to care too much and they're going to eventually pull their kids out without thinking about it. But if you get the parents bought in and you really talk to them, you really identify what they want, what they need, in addition to the kids, then you have buy-in from both sides, which keeps the parents wanting to keep their kid in. It keeps the kid wanting to stay in. And then when they start seeing the actual sports performance benefits, both of them become raving fans for what you're doing. I think that's huge.
But Willem is asking us here, should there be a price difference between adult and kid membership? And I think it kind of ties in. It depends kind of how you run your program. We had a lot of success running a program where the kids and the adults were kind of doing something at the same time. So the adults could come for a class, but our kids program was running on the side. So there was, they got to come at the same time, so they're not wasting multiple hours commuting and going to different sessions. In terms of pricing, I know my answer has changed now that I actually have kids. Keeping multiple kids in multiple programs can really add up. That being said, if you're providing extreme value and potentially offering performance enhancements to their kids, do you think it should be cheaper for a kid versus an adult?
So I think that's a tough question. I think it's really, really market dependent. I think what you have to do to understand the pricing of your kids' programs is you need to go and figure out what gymnastics clubs are charging, cheerleading clubs are charging. You find the club sports in your town and figure out what the average price is. I always find gymnastics and cheerleading are going to be the highest hands down. But then if you figure out what like club baseball and club wrestling costs, then you can identify what your average price would be for a youth sport. And then I would develop my pricing around that. I don't think you can necessarily match it with your adult pricing, especially if you're pricing in like the upper 90 percentile of the personal training rates in your area. So I think kids, you have to go out there and do market research. You have to understand club sports specifically, not like school sports and all that because they're free, but club sports. So what are they charging? How is it organized? What do their booster clubs look like? How is it supplemented? And then you will organize your pricing around that. And so I think it ends up being like ours ends up being a little bit less than our adult program. And then like you were saying, if they have multiple kids in, you're going to have to deal with that because parents aren't going to want to pay like $200 a month per kid.
Right. You have to choose one kid that gets to do it and one doesn't.
Yeah.
Pricing probably also comes down to technicality of the program. If you're during like a weightlifting club and you're actually having to teach technical movements, that's going to require much more effort. And we all know, how well you can teach complex movements to a group class, let alone a group of kids. So I mean, that probably has to have some involvement in your decision. Is what does the program look like? Are you getting super technical and super specific? Like, are you teaching Olympic weightlifting, or is it more of a broad kind of fitness program?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like for ours, we're teaching youth Olympic style weightlifting, in sports performance. And so it's highly technical. And so like, that's why our fundamentals program is there before they go into the club training. So they get 7 to however many sessions they need, but 7 is usually the minimum, and it's at our PT rate in the gym. So that tends to be our high end offer up front, and then they move into the club stuff. But I do think you need a specific primer to make sure the kids are prepared for the group stuff, just like we do with the adults.
Yeah, it's a nice lead in. If you can if you can get a client, think of your long-term value, your lifetime value, if you can have a kid start at your gym when they're 10 and stay there for the 60, 70. Kevin Robinson is asking, what's a good age to introduce weightlifting to a child?
So I think this is like a two-pronged answer. There's two ideas behind this. Number one, if you introduce weightlifting under the age of like 12, because we'll start kids as young, like kids 6, 7, 8, 9, they can do it and they can do it just fine, but it's a different strategy and a different approach. And so if I get a kid that's between 7 to about 11, the whole strategy is to put like a PVC pipe in their hands, teach them the movements, have them do it a couple thousand times. But the big thing behind that is you're actually getting them to jump about 1,000 times per session. So you're developing that explosiveness and developing the coordination and technical capabilities of what they're doing. And once we tell the kids that young, once you do 1,000 reps with the PVC pipe, we can put 1 kilo on the bar. And then when you do another 1,000, you can put another kilo on the bar. And so they progress on like that. They have to do 1,000. If you say 1,000, the kids are going to do like 75, and then you're going to have to get them back in action. So I think that's how we manage the young ones like that. You probably, from like 7 to 8, you're going to get 20 minutes of attention span. From 8 to 9, you might move up into a 30-minute attention span. 9 to 12, they're going to be able to last about 45 minutes. So that's kind of what your breakdown would look like. And then once you get to 12 and over, that's probably the prime age to get them started and moving in like a structured approach or a structured program where you can put like weight on the bar and really get them doing things like competitions or prepping for their sport.
Yeah, I mean, it's with kids a lot of time it's not a strength issue. It's a motor control issue that you have to address first. It's not that they aren't strong. You just have to teach them the mechanics first, how to put all their strengths together. I mean, my 3-year-old daughter is power to weight ratio is incredible. Like she can hang on a bar for minutes at a time, no problem, right? But to put all the pieces together to do like an efficient jump requires practice and guidance and training. So, I mean, I think the big issue that people often worry about is just at what point do you start stacking weight on the bar. But I like your progression approach of just prove to me that you can do it well with consistency for many, many, many reps before we start kind of adding stress to the movement. Which I mean is any good coach should be able to figure that part out. That's pretty tried and tested philosophy. Have you guys had, I mean, in terms of the success of let's say something like a kids program, we'll put in a bigger category of a specialty program. How much does that supplement your kind of mainline program?
I think the youth weightlifting sports performance has become a pretty high-level competitor to our main program. We could almost call it another main program. It's become incredibly popular because we have the reputation established now. And it took a while to get people interested in wanting to do that. And it took us getting like our core, just like your main stuff, your core membership established and your core kids in there. And now those kids are starting to grow up and they're like, we had youth and now we have juniors all in the gym. And so if you're prepared for it, your youth weightlifting sports performance, if you do it right, can become just as like busy and just as profitable and just as big as your main program. So you have to be prepared for that.
A major feeder program, I imagine.
Yeah, it's huge. And then another thing we do with the kids after they've been doing the youth weightlifting and sports performance we usually give them like 6 months of actually lifting and understanding the technical stuff. We'll start introducing like mini workouts at the end. So like you finished your weightlifting today, now you have to go do 3 rounds of 10 box jumps and 5 pull-ups. And so now we're teaching them not only weightlifting, but now we're getting into the jumping and the technical accuracy and all of that stuff.
Get them introduced to the Metcon aspect, yeah. I mean, in terms of marketing a program, to kind of get back to Seneca's question, you find that if the program's new, obviously you need to build awareness and you need to build, excitement around the program. After a certain point, you're going to start to get that brand awareness, and people are going to know that the program's happening. Do you find that you increase your marketing efforts over time as the program grows, or you can kind of taper them down, or how have you guys seen the growth of those programs?
Yeah, I find with youth weightlifting, it's interesting. We do a lot of like guerrilla based marketing for it. So we don't have to put a lot of money into it because these kids are on Instagram and Snapchat most of the time. So we post, and so are the parents. And so we post like a video of our kids lifting every day or a video of someone lifting every single day. And then all of a sudden in the comments, you start getting someone tagging someone like, hey, your kid should do this. And another person, all of a sudden we have 500 people tagging each other in the comments. And then our club strength grows. And then the other thing that I think works really well for marketing it, and you can do this like sustainable long-term without having to ramp up or ramp down, is to partner with like higher level influencers. So we had like Caffeine and Kilos sponsor our youth team for a couple of years, and they would share the videos, and we'd gain like a couple thousand followers from them sharing our stuff. And that was big. So I think the big strategy is you have to utilize Instagram and Snapchat. And if you have high school kids, maybe Twitter, and you just post a video every day of them lifting on Instagram. Then you start doing stories. And so you put the stories and the Snapchat, basically the copy of Snapchat, on every day, like 5 to 7 of them, and you just put the phone in the kids' hands and say, hey, record each other. You're the holder of the day. And then they have fun, and then the other people see it and they're like, man, that's awesome. I want to do that. And then maybe after a couple snaps, you put up like a thing like, hey, want to come try this out? Screenshot the snap. Come see us.
Now, in terms of startup strategy, you guys do anything like a pre-sale to kind of gauge interest, or is it just the program's going to run whether you have 1 kid or 10 kids? Or...
I think a pre-sale is probably a pretty good strategy. Organize, like talk to all the clubs and all the places and say, hey, we've got 10 spots to start this up, because we start everybody individualized at the beginning, and then start developing that list. Once that's full, then you launch and set it up. I think one of the big ways you can start it up quickly too is to leverage your membership and have them, people who have children are going to want to do the program because they want their kids to work out at the same time as the parents are doing. And that's what we have organized, like you were saying earlier. Now, the kids are working out, and then there's an adult class going on at the same time. And so then all of a sudden your members are going to want to put their kids in the program because they want them to be involved in something cool like this.
Yeah, I mean, when our kids program was in full swing, we had a performance development program that we called it. And what we initially did to get traction was to actually approach, I mean, again, in our area, hockey's a big sport, one of the big sports. And so, you don't play much hockey in the summer. So we went and approached them right at the end of their season to set up their kind of off ice, dry land training. So the whole team was coming out. The team we ended up hooking right off the bat was like a traveling rep team. So we actually had kids driving, some of them hour and 20 minutes just to come do a class. And I mean, that was successful in the fact that we got a huge, we got a good group right off the top the first year. We ended up hooking some of the parents because they were driving an hour and a half to get there. They might as well do something besides just sit around. So we ended up picking up a bunch of, granted, short-term members, but, it definitely helped boost the kind of program revenue. But that led into, like you said, if you can capture the event for your marketing material, you're just sitting on this gold mine of content that you can then recycle to start boosting next year getting those pre-sales for the next season, because we had all this video and all these pictures and all these, smiling, happy kids that the next year we didn't have to even really go and target the team. They came to us. And not only that, their friends talked to other friends. Now other hockey teams in the area wanted to do the same thing. We ended up getting that program to a point where we actually had to turn people away because we just didn't have the time or resources to handle them all.
Yeah, for sure.
It can be an easy strategy. Just go find a team or an organization that already has people kind of used to paying for that kind of a service. Mm-hmm. Just piggyback off that buying behavior that they've already established.
Yeah,
it kind of goes, I think, too, to what you said right at the beginning. What getting involved with USA weightlifting, it wasn't a direct thing. You're kind of building this slow brand awareness. I mean, we had things pay off where you go talk to like the local Rotary Club or whatever, and it's not like you were signing up members that day, but 3 years, 4 years later, people are coming in. Hey, I remember that talk you gave that one time. Okay.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, you've got this kind of credibility in your community that you can really leverage to market those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It's like you're saying, it's building that brand awareness around this new brand you're creating. And so for us, we had to create another Instagram and another Facebook page. So it's Stone Age Fuel and then Stone Age Fuel Barbell Club, because we post one picture of someone lifting every single day. So it becomes its own like little separate brand. And then people just start to recognize.
Would you advise doing something like that? So kind of keeping these specialty programs kind of sectioned off like that?
I think it depends on the specialty program. If you have something that's highly specialized, like a youth weightlifting program, and it really blows up, it'll take over your brand, and people start to recognize that as one of the main things you do. So you have to make a couple decisions, like, do I want this to be something that I separate because we're putting so much content out about it? Do I have enough time to do 2 pages for everything? Because that's a lot. Like most people will never have enough time for that. And if you don't, then you just have to get comfortable with putting everything on the same, and then putting on like each post, like check out Stone Age Fuel Barbell Club, check out Stone Age Fuel Gymnastics, or whatever programs you're doing, so you can kind of identify what they are. You could even give them unique names if you're using the same page for it.
Now, how much of the marketing effort do you guys put on the person actually running the specialty program? Let's say you have a coach this is going to be their kind of bread and butter specialty program. Is it on them to do all this, manage the social accounts and build the content and do all that stuff, or are you kind of sharing that between?
I think with the marketing, especially if they have a program like this, it's going to be mostly on them, because they're going to have to take videos of the kids and take videos of the people lifting. They're going to have to do the stories. They have to do all these things that require like boots on the ground. So they're going to have the stories going, the Snapchats going, the Instagram, one video of a lifter every day. So you can't necessarily spread that out as well, because it's a highly specialized specialty program. If there are other people running around, or you can get someone to help you can get people to do videos and all that for you. I think the other thing too, if you're writing blogs, because I think you have to like inspire and motivate people, which is what the videos of them lifting do. You have to educate people. So you have to do like one video a day or one video a week or whatever you have time for of teaching. So put one of the kids and get permission and say, hey, can I use your child to do a technical instruction video? And then you show the kid doing the movements and how to do it. And then you have to make them laugh. And so that's the part where you're showing the kids be goofy, having fun, kind of messing around a little bit. So then they see that it's motivating, it's educational, and it's a fun experience. And I think the only person who can really expel that out really well is the one who has the passion to run the program.
Yeah, it just reminds me of a little tactic that we used to use that worked really well, which was the kids these days all have phones and they're all on Snapchat, Twitter, and whatever. We used to actually I'd get them go get their phones. We do some fun game, like some worm game where they're all lined up doing something fun, and I just have I'd have all their phones kind of going at the same time, getting all this content. And then obviously as soon as they get their phone back, the first thing they want to do is go and post it to their profile and show everyone else craziness that they're experiencing at the gym right now. So you can kind of leverage everybody else's mini networks by just kind of capturing one thing.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised how strong like the kids' networks are on these platforms. Like these kids share something on Snapchat or Instagram, or especially like Instagram, and all of a sudden they have a couple of hundred likes and people asking them about it, or they share it on Twitter and it gets a million retweets. And so like their networks are really powerful, and if you can get their friends excited about it, they'll ask their parents about it, and then eventually they'll convince their parents to bring them in. And so it's like this underground style of getting people pumped, or the kids pumped about it, because you can't necessarily like market directly to them, but you can show them how fun it is.
Very cool. Do we have any questions from the YouTube side? I can't.
No questions on YouTube or Periscope over here. We have some viewers. This has been pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like there was some major knowledge drops about specialty programs, especially for kids.
Yeah, we get a ton of questions about kids too, so I think this will be good. Like we had so many questions that we even wrote an ebook about it. It's our Youth Weightlifting Sports Performance ebook. So when people call and ask, we send them the ebook, and they use that as like the primer to building their program, which is cool. So if there's no more questions, maybe we should hop off this thing. Oh, you guys, it looks like Devin's face froze. So if you guys have some more questions, shoot them out right now. If not, this has been a fun Facebook Live and YouTube Live and Periscope Live. If you guys have questions about youth programs or any ideas about youth programs, or you want more information, just shoot me an email or comment on this post, and we'll talk back and forth. You can also post in the group, and we'll answer your questions. We'll go back and forth, and we'll figure out what the best strategy is for you to develop a youth program and why it makes sense and why it's so fun. Thanks for watching, guys.